Crime Stoppers is the only organization in Canada which has the Supreme Court's decision which guarantees all our tipsters anonymity.
It's quite often the basis for something that could turn into a big investigation, and without that little piece of information, the investigation never would have started.
It's a program that really makes the community safe.
Any crime, anytime, you can make a difference. That simple statement makes a promise of anonymity to anyone who calls or reaches out to the Crime Stoppers program. I'm Nadia Matos. The Crime Stoppers program began more than 40 years ago, and since then it's been adopted by many countries around the world. And they all make the same promise, the promise of anonymity for the tipsters. It was a fatal shooting of a young gas station attendant and a lack of information that led Detective Greg McAleese to appeal to the public for help. A reenactment of the crime played on local television, and it prompted members of the community to come forward with details that help solve this violent crime. Retired Toronto Star reporter Cal Millar has spent most of his career writing about crime and policing issues. Among Millar's accomplishments, he was a founding member of Toronto Crime Stoppers program. And he recently penned his 6th book, Crime Stoppers, The Inside Story. This book is co-authored with Crime Stoppers founder and detective Greg McAleese. It chronicles how the program began its partnership with the police, the media, and the community. Cal Millar takes us back to the tragic night in July of 1976 in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Murder of a young boy. His name is Michael Carmen. He'd just graduated from high school. He was about to go into university. His eventual goal in life was to be a police officer. He wanted to be a state police officer. He was working one night at a gas bar. A bandit came in, armed with a shotgun, and robbed him. He fully cooperated with the bandit. Before the bandit left, there was some sense that he was recognized by Michael. He just shot him with a shotgun and ended his life. Michael lived for several hours. They tried to save his life at the hospital, but they were unable to. Greg McAleese, who was the investigating officer, was at the hospital with Michael. He was trying to get a dying declaration from him, to get any evidence that he possibly could, description of who the individual was, a name, but Michael was too gravely wounded to give any information. After he died, Greg went to his house where he lived with his mom and dad, and broke the news to the mom. The dad wasn't there at the time. There were some siblings there. And the mom said, "Find my son's killer." He made a promise, and you don't normally do that when you're a police officer, that he would solve the case. And sadly, nobody was coming forward. And at the time, Albuquerque was considered one of the most crime-ridden cities in North America. And there was an awful lot of apathy in the community. Police couldn't get any cooperation at all. And Greg needed to find a way to solve the case. And Crime Stoppers was born as a result of that.
Before becoming a police officer, Greg McAleese worked as a sports writer for the Associated Press. His experience as a former journalist, along with his knowledge of policing and connections within the community, led him to create the reenactment of the crime.
You know what this is and you know what I want. Open the register.
And they started getting calls almost immediately. Nobody had any calls regarding this crime, but they started talking about other crimes in the community. Like, do you know who did this case? Do you know who did that? And the actual very first case that they ever solved was a serial rapist who had been attacking women at a local mall, and they were never able to catch him, but a tip to the program led to the solving of that case. So that was actually the first case solved.
Within hours of the reenactment broadcast, a call came in that changed everything.
Late into the night, early hours of the morning, he got a call from someone who said, I didn't see the murder, but he said, I think I heard the gunshot. So at the time I thought it was fireworks because it was quite close to July the 4th in the United States. He said, right after I saw the fireworks, I heard the fireworks, he said a car sped past, and it was distinctive, and he was able to describe it. But more so, he said, that car is actually in this neighborhood. It's where I live. And Greg took down the details, and the area was staked out. They found the vehicle and subsequently identified two people who'd been in the robbery, the gunman who shot Michael Carmen and the getaway driver. And as a result of that tip, that case was solved. So he was able to go back to the mom and say, we've made arrests.
The Crime Stoppers program is a not-for-profit, community-based charity. It came to Canada in 1982 and first formed in Calgary. By the following year, Hamilton introduced the program to Ontario. Now, there are 38 programs across the province. Every Crime Stoppers program is made up of a volunteer board of directors, and they work directly with the police coordinator.
We are all volunteers. It's a volunteer board of directors that work with our police partners and with our media partners to create awareness and to help provide information to help law enforcement in all capacities. To date, since inception here in Ontario, Crime Stopper tips have been responsible for about 192,000 arrests and over $4 billion in recovered stolen property and drugs. Unlike other organizations that have tip lines or hotlines and pledge anonymity, Crime Stoppers is the only organization in Canada which has the Supreme Court's decision which guarantees all our tipsters anonymity. When you call Crime Stoppers or you send in a text tip or a web tip, you will never be called to testify in court. You will always remain anonymous.
Coming up, the story of how Crime Stoppers brought a community together after a devastating act of vandalism.
That was an event that really struck at a core of a community and showed some vulnerability.
The tips that come in that help us solve our crimes. I mean, Crime Stoppers is invaluable police work.
Up next,
We promise anonymity, and that guarantee.
how Waterloo Regional Crime Stoppers makes the community safer, one call at a time.